Hey guys, as a follow on from yesterday's post where I suggested that many of the common issues clients come to me with are actually the result of them becoming codependent, today I want to discuss the roles people play growing up in a dysfunctional family. Our early experiences in life basically shape us into who we become. It's obvious, really. But what we don't really think about is the roles we end up playing as we are growing up. What we end up having to do just to survive or to get our own way or just because it is expected of us. And yet we wonder why so many of us hide behind a facade later in life. Anyway, back to family roles and codependency. One of the pioneers of family therapy, Virginia Satir, noticed over time there are just a few main differences between a healthy family life and a troubled one. And that was in the areas of self-worth, family rules, and communication. What she found was that in a healthy family, there are realistic and flexible expectations. But in a dysfunctional family, self-worth was always low and communication was poor, unclear, and dishonest. As for the rules, Satir found that these troubled families she worked with tended to set very strict, rigid rules, but that they were different depending on where you were deemed to fit in. In other words, there were specific roles for family members with expectations for each. Wow. So depending on the roles we played and for how long, we were essentially learning how we should behave in the family. And by extrapolation, for some of us, we would go on to play as an adult, as a wife or husband, as a sibling, a friend, or even at work. So let's look at these roles and how they work. Bear in mind that these roles come about as individual parts of a machine, in other words, the family, all doing their bit to keep the status quo, even if to an outsider it would make no sense and even border on neglect and abuse in a couple of roles. The idea as we walk through these different roles is to see if you can firstly identify yourself and then progress through each member of your family, identifying which role they played. Bear in mind, as circumstances change, you may have transitioned from one role to another to fit in, for example, with the new family dynamic, very common in broken families and those whose parents went on to remarry. So basically, we have 5 roles: the enabler, the hero, the scapegoat, the lost child, and the mascot. The enabler. The enabler is expected to ignore their own feelings in order to support other family members. This would be, for example, the wife in later life who buys alcohol for the alcoholic, abusive husband. The hero. The hero is often seen to do no wrong. With my mostly female clients, I call her the princess. Even when she messes up, it is ignored. Or worse, the scapegoat gets blamed. So you can imagine when Princess goes out into the real world, the shock she will have as she believes the rules don't apply to her because she is special. And onto that scapegoat. We've all experienced this in some form. In a dysfunctional family, however, they end up taking the brunt of all the problems so as to deflect from the real issues. So, of course, by their teenage years, they rebel. They are getting blamed for everything anyway. They are vulnerable to addiction and risk-taking. Then when they do get in trouble, they become easy prey for the rest of the family to blame everything on them. The lost child. This role is best described as the emotional orphan. mostly invisible and neglected by other family members. This is a very lonely role and results in that person feeling totally disconnected and not even knowing themselves. And finally, the mascot. Strangely, unlike the lost child, the mascot can find themselves smothered in attention and affection. However, this is not healthy either, as it comes from their parent or caretaker needing to feel that they are doing their job by looking after the mascot, who they see as weak, dependent, and helpless. So, of course, they grow up feeling that way, that they are unable to do anything for themselves. There you go, the 5 roles in a dysfunctional family. If you wonder why you behave in a certain way or allow certain other people to treat you inappropriately, it may be well worth your while contemplating each of these roles as you grew up. See if you can assign any of them to yourself or to any other family members present during your early years. Then apply the same thought process to your current relationships. See if you could unintentionally be performing any of those roles still. Who are you enabling? Who are you being the scapegoat for? Who is acting the hero at your expense? Now, consider for a moment if you have any of these characteristics. An exaggerated sense of responsibility for the actions of others. A tendency to become hurt or upset when people don't recognize your efforts. An unhealthy dependence on relationships. The codependent will do anything to hold on to a relationship to avoid the feeling of abandonment. An extreme need for approval and recognition. A compelling need to control others. A fear of being abandoned or alone. Problems with intimacy and setting boundaries. And on and on. Luckily though, codependency is a learned behavior. And as such, we can relearn more balanced, healthier ways to maintain relationships with others. And I actually do exactly that with clients all the time with my online If Only I Could program. And as they work through this program, they learn that they can say no. They can set their own boundaries. That it's okay to put themselves first as needed. And they can speak up and ask for what they need. So there you go. As usual, PM me anytime to find out more. Till next time. Cheers.